In this video, we will be taking a look at composite functions. Now let's get started. Now let's say we have three functions, f being equal to 2x minus 1, g being equal to 3x, and h being equal to x squared plus 1. And we're asked to find f of g of negative 3. So before we continue, let's just show you guys another way to write this. So we would have f of g of negative 3. Now this little circle represents the composite function sign. So these two functions are the same. Now let's solve for f of g of negative 3. Now what this is saying is that what value do we get when we plug the value negative 3 into the function into the function g, and then plug that result, so f of g of negative 3 into the function f, which should give us an answer of f of g of negative 3. So this means we will start from inside the brackets or the parentheses and work out. So let's start with g of negative 3. So g of x is equal to 3x. Therefore g of negative 3 is equal to 3 times negative 3. And so g of negative 3 is equal to negative 9. Now that we found the value for negative 9, or now that we found the value for g of negative 3, we can go ahead and plug that value into the function of f. So f of g of negative 3, or f of negative 9, is equal to 2 times negative 9 minus 1. And so f of negative 9 should be equal to negative 18 minus 1, and this should be negative 19. So our answer for f of g of negative 3 should be 19. Now let's say we are asked to find f of h of 7. So let me try and put this in a different ink so we can see a clear difference. Okay. So as mentioned before, we will work inside the parentheses first, and then we'll work out. So we would find h of 7 first. And h of 7 would be 7 squared, which is this function here, plus 1. And that means h of 7 is equal to 49 plus 1. h of 7 is equal to 50. And now that we found the value for h of 7, we can plug that value into the function of f, which is 2 times 50 minus 1, and that should be equal to 100 minus 1, or 99. So our value for f of h of 7 is equal to 99. Okay guys, let's move on to another example. Now let's say we were asked to find g of h of 24. You can go ahead and pause the video and try this for yourself. Now, to solve this, we need to find the function, or find the value that would represent g of h of 24. So g of h of 24. And so we would first need to solve for h of 24, which should be equal to 24 squared plus 1, or 576 plus 1, which is 577. And that should be our h of 24. Now that we found h of 24, we can go ahead and plug that value in to our g function. So that should be g of 577, which is equal to 3 times 577. So 1731. So g of h of 24 should be equal to 1731. Let's move on to another example. Now, let's take a look at this function f of g of h of 2. Now, as we mentioned before, we should work from inside outwards. So, let's find h of 2. That should be 2 squared plus 1, which is 4 plus 1, or h of 2 is equal to 5. Now that we found h of 2, we can then plug that value in to our function of g. So g of 5 is equal to 3 times 5, or 15. So g of 5 is 15. And now that we found g of h of 2, we can plug that value in to our function of f. So it would be f of 15 is equal to 2x minus 1, which would be 2 times 15 minus 1, or 30 minus 1, which is 29. And that is our f of 15. So our function, or the value for f of g of h of 2 is 29. Okay guys, now let's try another example. Let's say we were asked for h of g of f of 5. Now, as we mentioned, we were going to work from inside the innermost function outwards. So f of 5 should be equal to 2 times 5 minus 1, or 10 minus 1, or 9. Now that we found a function for, or now that we found the value for f of 5, we should plug that value in for g of f of 5. So it should be g of 9, and g of 9 would be 3 times 9, which is 27. And now that we found our value for g of 9, we can plug that value in to the function of f, or sorry, h, and that should be h of 27, which is 27 squared plus 1. And the value for 27 squared plus 1 be 729 plus 1 or 730. So our final answer for h of g of f of 5 is equal to 730. That would be it for our video. Thanks again for joining.